Welcome to Unlocking German Ancestry, Expert Strategies for Finding and Interpreting German Records. Are you excited to be here? Good. We're excited too. This is my very first panel, so very excited to be with these esteemed colleagues. We are being live streamed, so a warm welcome to our online audience. I will tell you an embarrassing story about the first time that I was live streamed a few years ago at Roots Tech. I was a little nervous about the presentation. It was a brand new one, but I thought I did a pretty good job, and my live stream monitor was down there at the bottom of the stage. And after I finished the presentation, the audience started clapping, and my monitor looks at me and goes like this with her hand up. So I thought, she wants to give me a high five for doing a good job. So I went right over to her, gave her a great big high five, and she said, no, I meant stay up there, you're still being filmed. So if anyone wants to give me a high five afterwards, I would appreciate it. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. As a couple of housekeeping rules, please make sure to silence any cell phone or electronic device. No audio, video, or photos are allowed, so please make sure to pay close attention. To introduce my fellow presenters, first we have James Beidler. He is the author of 4 commercially published books, including a new edition coming out soon of Trace Your German Roots Online. He writes the Roots and Branches column and blog at rootsbranches.com, and he's the columnist for German Life magazine. And about 10 years ago, when I started in the German genealogy field, I really didn't know much about it besides my interest. So I got a bunch of books, and one of the books that I purchased was The Family Tree Guide to German Genealogy by James M. Beidler. And I devoured that book, trying to learn anything and everything. A few months later, I went to the German Genealogy Conference, where I had my first booth. And who was next to me at the booth but James M. Beidler, the famous author, and I was starstruck. And so I got to know him, and here we are 10 years later getting to present together.
And now she's a famous author too.
Thank you. And then we have Andrea Benscheider, who I've gotten to know well the last few years. She is an amazing professional genealogist from Hamburg, so we have a real German here. She's been a researcher for Who Do You Think You Are and Finding Your Roots since 2007. She is the president of the Association of German-Speaking Professionals, and she recently founded the new German Genealogy Collective, which is a great organization. So without further ado, let's get into unlocking your German ancestry. Oh, should I introduce myself too?
Yes, Katie.
All right. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Catherine Schober, and I am the founder and CEO of Germanology Unlocked, where we translate historical documents in the old German handwriting. I've also gotten the privilege of working with Finding Your Roots and the History Channel, and have multiple books and courses on helping you work with your German ancestry. So now, are you ready for unlocking German genealogy?
Wonderful. So as you've heard already, I come from Hamburg, and in Hamburg we say moin as a greeting. We say it all day long, basically. And as you've heard, I've been in the business of being a professional genealogist for 20 years, and so I have a pretty good idea how to research in Germany. But a big question that I also always get is like, what do we do if we don't know where an ancestor comes from? And the first thing that I say is research in the US first. And so that's why, Jim, I'm looking forward to hearing what records to look at to really get to the point to go across the Atlantic to find your ancestors.
Thank you, Andrea. And yes, you're absolutely right. Too many, I think Andrea probably has encountered an American or two who says they want to find a Schmidt somewhere in Prussia. And thankfully, enough of you are laughing that you know the joke that that's almost impossible because it's a very common surname, and Prussia at one point covered more than half of Germany. So really, this is why your German research begins generally in America. And you know, in our handout that's online, there's a bunch of the best methodologies that we can explain as needed. But probably the biggest thing is trying to narrow down to hopefully just one village or one small region of Germany where your particular ancestors came from. And that's how you're going to do that. I mean, yes, you might have it handed down in the family, and that can be a two-edged sword itself, because a lot of times that German village name that's been handed down the family has been corrupted and will not be findable on a map without some more research. But I know for most people, including myself, you don't have anything handed down in the family, so you have to look through every single American record relating to the immigrant couple, relating to the immigrant couple's children, because any one of those records could be the one that gives that hometown, that specific hometown, that Heimat in Germany. And I list here just a real starter set of possibilities that may contain a German hometown. And I'm going to show you some examples, and probably I don't go into to naturalizations because they're a pretty complex topic. Really, you're getting three presentations in one here between the three of us, but we're going through pretty quickly. Naturalizations, becoming an American citizen, it's usually a two-step process, and either of those steps might yield a hometown. But probably, well, not just probably, the retired BYU professor Roger Miner would say, absolutely, church records are your number one place that you might find German hometowns. And I think we have a sense that in the baptismal records, in the marriage records, those are some of the more common ones. But in my example here, I'm showing you a membership register from the town of Strawberry Point, the Lutheran Church in Strawberry Point, Iowa. And in this membership register, this was why I was doing some professional research for a lady. And she's looking for this Johann Caspar Dorbat. And indeed, this membership record shows his birth date, an exact date of birth. That's another good thing to have, so you don't end up thinking that you have somebody of the same name, but you don't know if it's the identical person. And a place of birth. Now, here's another complication. There are so many towns in Germany that have the same name. Neustadt, it means new city. Well, there's only about 30 of them scattered across Germany. But this particular Neustadt is Neustadt an der Saale. Well, you think, okay, that has got to narrow it down. Well, guess what? There's Neustadts on two different Saale rivers in Germany, one in Bavaria, one in Saxony, in the Saxon duchies. So I hope, I'm not meaning to be discouraging, let me tell you. I'm meaning to just tell you it's not always as obvious it is. And when I say church records, you should be trying to find, not just the low-hanging fruit, but should be trying to find every conceivable type of church record that might do it. And then another example, and this is from my home county of Berks County, Pennsylvania, a church, St. James Lutheran, and it's a burial register. And there's a lot of times a couple of different types of burial registers. So the minority of them are ones that give almost like a full obituary. Other ones are what I call the one-liners, where it just says the name of the person, maybe only ungefähr, 40 Jahre, about 40 years that they were aged when they died. This is an in-between one. This is for a man named Peter Merz. No, we don't know if he's related to the new chancellor in waiting of Germany. But this nugget that it gives here is that it's from Babelsheim, which turns out to be well, it says outright there that it's in the Kingdom of Bavaria. That's, again, a good clue, not just the town name, but also the German state name. You know, I'm going to give you a complication on this one, too. The complication is that this is the part of Bavaria known as the Pfalz or Palatinate, which is in southwestern Germany, not southeastern Germany, where Bavaria is today. So again, you got to study geography, you got to study history to be able to make sure that you're in the exact right area of Germany. Tombstones. Sometimes you're lucky enough that the ancestors' hometown, birthplace in Germany, in this case Reutlingen in Württemberg, is listed. That's a great thing when you find it. A couple of my ancestors in the same cemetery as this Paulina Etala, they both have their birthplaces listed. And once I had those birthplaces, it hooked me into these wonderful things called Ortsippenbucher, which are like town genealogy histories, and got both of those individuals back to the 1500s. So.
I think there's some Ortsippenbucher at the Family Search Library across the street, so go check it out.
A few hundred of them,
Exactly.
yes, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
they just acquired a big collection last year and really added many volumes to this collection here.
Yeah, they're a great thing. And in addition to what's here at the Family History Library, Compgen.de, the German mega site, they have several hundred of them online too.
Mm-hmm.
If that word sounds scary to you and you want to go ask someone at the library about it, you can call them an OSB. It's okay to say.
So, okay. Also, obituaries. And here the key is that you, wherever possible, want to get a German language newspaper and obituary. Because in the English language newspapers, yeah, they're great to start, but a lot of times they will butcher the names of the towns, butcher the names of the individuals. Katie's going to be talking a little bit about language soon, and helping you with that. This one in English, Hermann Vertensen. Born in Hochdorf, the name of the town was right. Württemberg, well, it's actually Württemberg, but that's at least understandable. The problem here is there were 3 Hochdorfs, all in Württemberg, but I found the right one. So, so again, this is just to get you started, just to really. Give you a starter set of things to look at. There are many more things, and then once you, because let's be optimistic, once you get to the right hometown, then you're going to need somebody like Andrea to tell you what types of records are available in Germany, because it's going to be some things that are the same, some things that are completely different. and some in the middle, right, Andrea?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so let me start with the types of records that we do not have, that you're acquainted to here in America. And the first thing is we do not have old tombstones. That is due to the reason that graves in Germany are rented for 25 years. And you find records still at the cemetery records about also old graves, but basically the old tombstones usually are not there anymore. The next thing that we don't have are obituaries in a way that you know them here. We have announcements or advertisements in newspapers where someone says, like, my grandfather just died, and all the family members that were left behind, or the announcement that someone had a baby or that someone got married, but usually it's like really not much more information there. And the last thing that we also do not have on a regular basis, as you're used to it, are census records. There are only very few of the original 30 to 40 German states that existed until 1871 that actually had census records, and that had that kind of census records taken that were useful for genealogy. Some of them were only taken for statistical reasons, and so the original documents don't even exist anymore.
Now, Roger Miner would maybe disagree with you because he claims he's found more, although they're not accessible. That's the thing, even if they exist.
Well, I had the pleasure of supporting him with the research for the census records in Hamburg, and so that area definitely there are no census records. There were some taken, but the original records don't exist anymore. and again, it's just like a matter of different states had different censuses at different times, but there was not one common record over times. That only started after the 1870s, basically. But now let's start with what do you do when you go to Germany and you want to identify the hometown, but for now, the research in America hasn't really produced much of a result, and so you don't know anything yet. So you don't know the region or a town name. And there are a few places where I usually look, and I begin with the passenger departure records because they, like the ones from Hamburg that still exist, they list the last place of residence of an immigrant before he or she left Europe. Then we have last name distribution lists, and I will show maps, and I will show that. And Jim just had a perfect example for that, and I will show you that in a second. Jim also mentioned the Verein für Computergenealogie. It's the Association for Computer Genealogy in Germany. The links to everything we mention here are in the handout. And where I also like to look is just at the databases of Family Search, Ancestry, MyHeritage, etc., to see where were clusters, where a certain last name that I'm looking for, where were they common, and so that may give me an idea. And just one thing about the paid subscription of Ancestry and MyHeritage. For Ancestry, you definitely will need the international subscription to access German records online. So this is an example of a German distribution list. I chose the last name Schmidt, as you just said, as an example. And as you can see, the red dots show the distribution of the last name in around 1890, and that was based on the casualty lists from World War I. And then the yellow dots are like based on 1996 from the last mutual common address book or city directory for all of Germany when people still had landlines, when the East Germans after the reunification had not moved around that much. So to see looking for a Schmidt or any other very popular name is not very helpful in this case.
You will find them everywhere.
So I looked at the last names of my co-speakers here today. So this is an example for the last name Schober. So the red spots you see usually in the former Eastern territories, and then the green spots, like based on the 1990s, is then again more on the territory of Germany today. But you can see Katie has an Austrian husband, and there are Schobers listed in the right area where
I feel very lucky when I married an Austrian that I didn't get stuck with a last name like Grabenhofer Schmidt-Berg or something like that. Schober's a good one.
So, but it's even easier if your last name was Beidler. So you see there are only very, very limited spots there. And so that really can make it very easy to find like places to start and look. And if there are 5 different towns where the name was in, then you have to look through 5 different towns. But that still is a lot easier than the Schmidt search, for example. I also used Beidler to do this meta search. Like they have like various databases on this website for the Association of Computer Genealogy. And it's like from gravestones to the casualty list to information that individual researchers provided, databases from various German genealogy societies. And you put in a last name and then you get a result for that. And so these are just a few of the Beidlers that were found in there. And you usually have the last name, you have the source information, and then dates and where these people lived. So that, again, can point you towards regions, towards towns, and you can see if there might be a relationship.
Dankeschön.
There you go. And then so let's continue with the steps that you do if you know the region but you don't have the town. So you do everything that I pointed out before. Plus now I would start looking at German regional immigration databases. Like if you know they came from Oldenburg or they came from Hesse, you usually can look at the online finding aids of the state archives in that region, and they oftentimes have immigration files, so that would be something in such immigration files. The German immigrants had to usually apply for a permit to leave their hometown, and these can be found at these archives, so that would be a place to then get to the smaller locality to find the actual village where they came from. Otherwise, also, if you have the region, contact the local genealogical society, and how to find them again is also in the handout. And there are always like very many people who really know the history of their area in depth and who are usually very, very helpful.
A question I often get asked is, if you're contacting someone in Germany, should you write in German?
You can write in German. Many Germans understand English, and nowadays with great tools like Google Translate or DeepL or other tools, it's just easy to have your English part and then translate it in German into German. And even if it's not 100% perfect, but people will still understand it, and they will understand and appreciate the effort that you made.
I mean, I've always heard good English beats bad German for writing, but that was before the translation tools. So.
I agree. So, and I guess it depends also with whom you're dealing with, because like if you're dealing with an official agency, for example, then you might be told, well, our language is German and you have to write in German and communicate with us in German. And if I have any documents from England, that may not be accepted there. So we had that too. But again, it always depends who you're talking to. And in a local genealogical society, that usually should not be the problem. So the last thing is, so you found now the hometown, you know where they come from, so what do you do next? So as Jim started with the records to work with in America, I just want to mention a few records that you then can work with in Germany when it comes to finding living relatives or to research your ancestry in Germany. So the big change was, I mentioned that in 1871 we had the first union of all German states within 1871 when the German Empire was founded. And before that, there were, depending on when you looked at it, some 30 to 40 independent states. They all had independent currency, they had independent governments, they had independent even measures time zones. There were 40-something time zones in Germany. Every 2 minutes, there were 2 miles, there was a minute difference. So it's like, so it was like just like very many states and small towns, and they all were doing their own thing. And so with 1871, finally came a part where everything became more common. It was kind of one set of record keeping, one rules and regulations. And so as of 1874 in Prussia or 1876 in the rest of Germany, that was when the civil records, as we call them, or vital records, as you call them, were introduced. And before that, the main source were church books like the Ortssippenbücher that Jim and Katie mentioned before are usually based on the church books. So someone sat down and transcribed the information from the church books and put it into a more easier, understandable way for you to look at. And so here's like, in German church books, you can also find information about the immigrants. So this Eduard Ferdinand Schlag, he immigrated to America, and it even mentions like when he immigrated in May 1852 and through the port of Hamburg. So that's something, with that you then definitely would have a confirmation if that was your ancestor, that you're at the right spot. This is an example of one of these vital records that we have, and it gives you also information about the parents. There may be marginal notes that provide more information when someone died or got married, or even children may be listed on there as well. And here too is a list with all kinds of other records that you may look at that may be interesting to you to find more, to learn more about your German ancestors once you've found their hometown, once you've identified really the first records and confirmed that they are from that area. And basically, so the list is also on the handout, but just to give you a few ideas how to learn more about the lives and the circumstances of your ancestors.
Yeah, great. Well, I'm going to move up to the lectern because I wanted to show you all some websites, but thank you, Andrea, for that wonderful intro to German records. So, did anyone notice Andrea's church record and look at it and think, why, Germans, why? As if it's not bad enough that we're working in German, you also have to deal with this crazy old handwriting. Who here has worked with the handwriting before? Okay, good. So a lot of you are familiar with it. We do have some people who did not raise your hand. So for those of you for whom this is new, the old German handwriting is called Kurrentschrift. Kurrent comes from the Latin word for running. If you speak Spanish or Italian, you might see some similarities. And Schrift is the German word for script. So it literally means running script. And as you can see, it's very flowing and very beautiful, and also very difficult to read. But the more you expose yourself to it, the more you practice, the easier it gets. Now, I get a lot of people saying, I have a friend in Germany, they can just decipher my documents for me. Unfortunately not. This script stopped being taught in schools around the 1940s and 50s. So unless your friend is in their 80s or 90s, which would be great, they likely did not learn this in school. However, there are wonderful resources out there to help us with the script. One website that I get asked about a lot is a newer AI website called Transkribus. And this is a website where you can put your German handwritten document in, you can upload it, and it will transcribe it for you. Now, I want you to use this website with some caution. It will work great for certain documents, and then other documents, it will just have a lot of mistakes. So just like using Google Translate or any other online translation tool, it is, you want to verify it somehow. So it's good if you have some experience with the script yourself to make sure that what it's telling you is accurate. This document here is from the 1700s, and I put it into the website, and all of those words underlined in red are incorrect. Now, if I read the old German script, so that's fine. If I did that, that would be a great head start. The tool did a wonderful job kind of getting me started, and then I can go through and correct it. But if you don't read the script, you won't be able to tell if this is right or wrong. So that's why I'm kind of hesitant, at least in this point in time, to tell you to use it without any verification. Some of the examples from here is it said one of the towns was Dachsen, Weimar, and Fisenach. It actually should have been Sachsen, Weimar, and Eisenach. So that could have taken you down a very wrong path. It said one of the person's name was Garlagust, which is not a name in German. His name was actually Karl August. So like I said, some documents may be better than others. It may be 90% accurate sometimes and 50% accurate others. So just kind of be careful. So how can you actually learn the handwriting yourself? Well, I do have a master's in German, but they never told us about this old handwriting in school. So I had to teach myself too. So these are the books that I used. We've mentioned Roger Meinert a lot throughout this presentation. He has a wonderful book on deciphering handwriting in German documents. All of these books are on your handout. It's very thorough. We'll go through every letter, and it's very, very helpful. Edna Benz has a book, If I Can, You Can, Decipher Germanic Records. It's unfortunately out of print, but if you can get your hands on it in some kind of old used book resale website, I would highly recommend it. It has great vocabulary lists. I myself wrote a book on everything I wish I would have known when I was learning the handwriting. That's called Tips and Tricks of Deciphering German Handwriting. And then this red book, if you're going to go out and buy any book, buy this red book, the German to English Genealogical Dictionary by Ernest Thode. It's over 200 pages of words that you are going to find in your genealogical documents. So that's not necessarily the handwriting, but it will help you immensely in deciphering your documents.
Because there are so many archaic words
Exactly.
that pop up in the documents that you're not going to find in any modern German dictionary. But Ernie, and he's still active. He goes around to conferences and he hears some word that he hasn't seen before, and then that's in the next edition of that dictionary.
Oh, that's really cool. I actually just reached out to him, and I get to do an interview with him all about how he created this dictionary. So I'm so excited to learn things like that. So that's a little bit of resources to help you out. Another great website resource that I would recommend is the Script Generator website. This is just really fun to play with. It's on your handout. And in the audience, I'll see who I can hear, give me a last name that you're researching. What is that? You in the glasses? Yeah. Say it a little louder. EMG? Okay, so I would type that into the Script Generator website, press enter, and that is what his name would look like in the old German script. So if you are trying to find documents and you want to be able to pick out that last name amidst all the church records that Andrea was talking about, go to this website, type in your last name, and see what it looks like. Another great tool that this website has is that you can change the type of script that appears based on the one that most resembles the script in your document. So you can kind of play around with the different scripts. You can do this for last names. You can do this for towns if you're trying to decipher towns. Any word in German, if you want to look for the word Geburt. Anybody know what Geburt means? Birth. So if you want to find out, okay, I'm looking for the word birth, what does that look like in the script? Just type it into this website and it pops right up for you. It's a really great tool to use.
And that's great that it has those different options there. Now, of course, every pastor in the church books that I'm looking for must have had a broken hand because the scripts look nothing like the classic ones. But
that's actually a great point. So yeah, you'll never get this perfect computerized version. Some people will be better than others. But if you are working with church records from one parish and you're working with multiple records, A lot of people like to make a key for themselves. So you write down, this is how that pastor wrote his A's, this is how he wrote his B's. And then as you go through the records, you have that key to look at, and your brain will start to get used to that particular person's type of handwriting. Another great website to use that really helped me when I was learning is wordmind.info. As you go through and transcribe, there are going to be letters that are going to jump out at you. Maybe they look like the cursive we learned in school. But there will also be letters that just make you want to pull your hair out and you think, how will I ever be able to decipher these? So what I used to do is play hangman with myself. I would write down the letters that I could recognize on a piece of paper and then leave blanks for the letters that I couldn't read. I could then see that word as a whole and then maybe fill in the blanks looking at that word all written out. Now you may be thinking, okay, yes, you speak German, but I have no German in my brain. How would I do that? That's where this website comes in. It's called wordmind.info. You can do this for multiple languages. If you're researching any other line, you can do this for multiple languages. We'll stick with German. Click German up at the top. And then you type in the letters that you recognize and put an asterisk for any letters you don't. You can do as many wildcards as you want. So let's say you recognize the letters at the beginning of your occupation. You type them into WordMind, put your asterisk for the confusing letters at the end, and press search. Then you get 19 words with that possible letter combination. Now that's not horrible. Sometimes it will give you a list of hundreds of words, and that's just too much to look for. So you want to narrow it down. So what you can then do is go to that extra search filters button, click on it, and then go to the number of letters. You want to check that box for number of letters, and then count the letters in your word. And I always tell people, do one less letter and one more letter than you actually count, because sometimes with the script, it's hard to tell where one letter ends and the next begins, so give yourself a little wiggle room. So our occupation had 11 letters, so we'll do 10 to 12. And then we get only 4 words with that letter combination and number of letters. We could then look through those 4 words, see which one makes sense with the context, see which one matches our handwritten word, and see we'd come up with the word Schumacher, which means, anybody know? Shoemaker, very good. So it's a great way to kind of give yourself extra help as you're trying to figure out those missing letters.
Now, can you do something that's not, if you don't know the beginning of the word?
Yes, that's a great question. So right here, I don't have my arrow, but can you see where it says words starting with? That's a drop-down menu. So you can change that from words starting with to words ending in, if you know more letters at the beginning. And it doesn't matter if it's right at the beginning or right at the end, it will still show you combinations for letters more to the beginning or more to the end. But you just pick the option that's closest with how many letters you recognize. Good question. All right, so besides the handwriting, we also have to deal with the fact that the records are in a different language. The records are in German. Mark Twain actually said, in early times, some sufferer sat up with a toothache, and he put the time into inventing the German language. So if you find German frustrating, you're in good company with Mark Twain. Luckily, just like with the handwriting, however, there are resources. I was just talking to someone before the presentation about the app Duolingo, and that's a nice free way to learn some German. But for genealogy in particular, Family Search has some wonderful language guides. So if you go to the Family Search German genealogical word list, which is right over here, it will show you, go down here, so many different types of words in German. It will have categories like months of the year, days of the week, numbers. So if you're looking for birth dates and death dates, I would suggest perusing this first. And then it also has medical terminology, numbers, occupations. This right here is actually crazy. It's a list of the types of farmers in Germany. Look how many, we're just on the A's and B's right now. So if your ancestor was a farmer, check this out. It will tell you what type of farmer they might have been. So it's a great way to get yourself familiar with German, familiar with the language patterns, and familiar with the words that you might see. Now, of course, there are wonderful online dictionaries that you can use. Both Andrea's favorite and my favorite is Leo, or Leo, and that's dict.leo.org. That's a great German to English online dictionary.
And sorry for interrupting, but some areas in Germany, of course, were French at one time, and the borders changed.
Yes.
And so you still also may need some French knowledge. So it's not just the German, you may need some French in there, or depending on what, like also for Swiss ancestors, there will be the use or the need to understand French.
Yes.
So that's what this comes in handy as well, because it covers all the languages.
Yes, it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. And dict.cc is also a good one. These are all on your handout, and wordreference.com. And I believe all of these, like Andrea said, cover multiple languages. So you can use them for multiple lines, or if your ancestors' region switched back and forth between France and Germany. Now, again, as a translator, people always ask me what I think about Google Translate, and I say the same I did with Transkribus. It's a great tool. Use it. Just try to verify it. I do not speak Latin. I never studied Latin. I've learned a lot through genealogy, but a few years back, I was trying to translate a Latin phrase in a German record, and I put it into Google Translate, and the handwriting said this, natus e renatus est, put it into Google Translate, and it came up, buttocks and revival. So I was pretty sure that's not what my birth record was saying. And I have since learned the phrase was spelled wrong on the document, and it means born and baptized, which makes much more sense with the context. So again, use it. deepl.com is another tool like Google Translate. I like it a little bit better than Google, but really try to verify it with a second source. That will just make sure you're accurate. Another really great translator, I'm actually afraid this is going to put me out of business at some point. A really great translator is ChatGPT. I have been very, very impressed with how good ChatGPT, so AI, can translate. This link is on your handout as well. A great prompt, so if you're familiar with AI, what you do to get it to answer your question is you give it a prompt. You type in a question. And a great prompt for figuring out German words is saying, what does Ackermann mean in German genealogy? Don't just put in German, put in German genealogy, because then it will put your word in the context of the historical time period. So I did that for this word, Ackermann, and it came up very accurate. In German genealogy, Ackermann typically means plowman or farmer and was often used as an occupational surname. And it also gives you so much more information about it, regional variants, geographical clues, social context. So again, as with any online tool, you would want to try to verify that ChatGPT is accurate, but this is the best thing I have seen so far in terms of translation, and I am very critical. So feel free to use it, just try to double check it and use that term in German genealogy to give you the historical context. All right, and then finally, as Andrea was talking about, there are wonderful German genealogy resources out there online, but a lot of those websites, like CompGain, like she mentioned, will be in German. And that's a deterrent for a lot of people. How do I use this German website? You can actually translate these websites to English. So what you do is you go to Google Translate and you put the website link into the translation field, and then click on the link in the English-speaking side, and a new website will pop up. And then it will actually translate that website into English for you. So you can see up here, it said Anmeldung. Now at the bottom in English, it says registration. So it's a great way to really get around, if you have a fear of German, it's a great way to get around that. Do it in English. Keep in mind it's machine translation. It won't be perfect, but for websites, it really saves a lot of people a lot of stress and headaches.
Some computer laptops today, a right click will give you a menu to translate to. But this is a good backup if you don't have that
Yeah,
option.
I know Google Chrome
Yeah.
allows you to do the right click,
Yeah.
and I think some other ones as well. But I don't think everyone has that, so the Google Translate will be the backup. All right, so that is the end of our presentation. But I want to know, do you think you can do your German genealogy? No, we need a much louder answer than that. Do you think you can do your German genealogy? All right, wonderful job. And we think you can do it too. And now I think we have about 15 minutes for any questions. There's microphones, I believe, in the middle, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And both aisles in the middle of the rooms. So please go to the mics, and we're happy to answer your question.
And as you're making your way there, I just want to remind you to please rate the presentation in your Roots Tech app. You can do it by following the instructions here. Down underneath the session, there's a fill out the survey button. Roots Tech really does take this into account, so if you enjoyed it, please let them know. And now we have some time for questions.
Yeah, and while people line up for the microphones, and that is important since it's being recorded, being live streamed, that you're at the mic, so we won't be able to take questions except from the mics. But while we're doing that, we know we're going to have more questions than we have time for. So, Katie, where are they going to be able to find you, and what are you going to be doing the rest of the conference?
Thank you. So I have a booth 302. So if you want to come over to booth 302 and ask me any questions that didn't get answered here, it's just right in the expo hall 302.
And you have a presentation this afternoon, I believe, too.
Yes, I do. Yes, I have a presentation at 4:30 on German borders. So if you've ever been curious about German borders, it's at 4:30 in room 150.
And Andrea?
I will have a presentation on the different types of everything that involves getting married, engagements, how do you get divorced in Germany in the 19th century, everything behind that. I have a live Q&A session where you can ask any question about German genealogy. So if you don't get your questions answered here today, come join me tomorrow afternoon. And there will be a last one about then going a little bit deeper and finding your living relatives of your immigrant ancestors.
That's great. And you also have a new venture, I believe. Tell us about that.
Thank you. Yeah. In October, I started the German Genealogy Collective, which is an area for people to dive into their German genealogy. It's not, as a professional genealogist, I do the research for other people, but this is really to empower you to do your own research. You have live Q&A sessions, there are videos, there are master classes, everything. And the three of us will also be together in June in Columbus, Ohio at the IGGP conference, the International German Genealogy Partnership Conference. And when you came in, some of you were, we hope most of you were handed some information about the conference, about Jim's book, about the German Genealogy Collective. If you missed that, there will be more of our postcards at the end when you leave the room.
And it includes a special discount for that IGGP conference in June. So,
yes, thank you.
And then as far as me, I'm going to be on a panel with Katie and Rich Venezia on Saturday morning. If you're interested in getting up at 8 o'clock, we're going to tell you all about that. Germans Coming and Going is the title of it. And as Andrea mentioned, I have a new book coming out that there are cards for. Okay, that's the end of the advertisements. I'm going to go over here for the first question at this mic.
With regards to the type of records that are in Germany, military records were cited. Are you able to find those online, or do you have to write to a district or something in Germany?
Usually they're not online. There are a few exceptions. If you're looking for those who have ancestors who came from Hesse and who fought here in America, though there are records online specifically to these Hesse soldiers. But usually military records are located at the state archives of the region or the state that your ancestors came from. Then there are two types of federal archives, like one in Berlin has all the military records for World War II and some of the medical records for the soldiers of World War I, and then for prior years, like 1871, the war against France, for example, that would be at the Federal Archive in Freiburg. But usually I would first look on a local level, and that would always be usually at the state archive level.
Thank you,
you.
Andrea. Over here on this side?
So my question was kind of along with that, but just trying to, where would you go to find these state archives, to find like the civil records and things like that?
That's a good question. So the German word for it is Staatsarchiv. It is STAATS and archive.
Without the E, archive without the E. Yeah.
And you would type then usually the German state that it would be in today. Today we have 16 German states. So, but otherwise just say archive and the state, and you usually always get a listing of that.
And then there is a book, Ancestors in German Archives, that goes over the whole list of archives in Germany. And there's a website, I'm not sure if we had in the handout or not, the University of Marburg has put together a archive portal listing those. If you don't see that, email one of us, and we'll get back to you.
Absolutely. And the challenge is also, since there are still districts and everything changing, so the archival structure also keeps on changing. So it's not always that clear and that easy. But
Well, and some of them, and some of the archives date back to the pre-1871 microstates and so forth. Like everything in Germany, it's complicated. So over here, you, sir.
Thank you for bringing my surname up on the board earlier, by the way. I'm doing some research over the past 2.5 years, and I was in Schaffensburg, just outside of Frankfurt this past August, visiting the Würzburg archive and that archive in Schaffensburg. And I have records to the 1400s now. However, the big gap is in connecting with a lot of living family members there via 30 FedEx mailings to random surnames in that region. Had a lot of good dinners. They all had family trees that stopped around the 30-year war. So I have records that go to the 1400s. I have stories that may go to the 1100s. But I don't have any family tree that can definitively connect beyond 1621. Do you have any suggestions on breaking through that 30-year war? Because I understand that impacted a lot of German families for family tree records.
It certainly did, and you might be getting a little greedy here. I won't, and it's not necessarily impossible. I mean, my advice would be to the very local level to see if there are any local experts that have compiled records that maybe are no longer extant. In one of my families in North Rhine-Westphalen, they have guild registers back into the Middle Ages that listed father-son relationships, so they were able to get some generations that way. You're gonna have to deal with German archives on a local level to see what oddball records they might have.
Some towns also have what's called a Heimat museum, so a hometown
Yes.
museum,
Yes.
and that might be a good place to see, like at least get in contact with a local expert, like Jim was saying.
right, and if church books survived the war, then the oldest church books are from around 1520s. So, and before that, if you had poor land-working ancestors, you basically have slim to no chances to find them. But if there was, if they had a special profession, as Jim mentioned, or if they owned land or anything, then there may be other records. But
The odds are slim and none, and Slim just rode out of town. Ma'am in the red there.
Thank you. This is more of a comment than a question, but I wanted to start by thanking you for an excellent presentation, and I thoroughly enjoyed your syllabus as well. One translation aid for reading and translating and understanding and deciphering German records that I have found to be really helpful, I did notice was not in your syllabus. So I don't know if you're familiar with the In Their Words series of genealogical translation guides by William F. Hoffman and Jonathan D. Shea. but it's a 4-volume series primarily aimed at Polish researchers, of which I am one. But volume 4 is German, and it's over 600 pages and super, super helpful to me. So I just wanted to throw that out there maybe as an additional resource
Thank
for people
you.
to consider.
Yeah, I've
Thank-
heard of In Their Words, but I didn't know necessarily about the German, so thank you so much. And there are likely many booksellers, like big book booths at Roots Tech, so maybe check out in the expo hall if you can find that book. That sounds
Yeah,
great.
You can also buy it directly from the publishers at their website, langline.com. But
Okay.
it's really
Thank you.
helpful. Thank you.
Thank you
Great,
very
thanks
much. So over here, ma'am.
That half answered my question. I'm curious on the effect of all of these sites with the more the Eastern German area. My relatives run from Dresden to Poznan, now Poland, Prussia. Are the record collections going to be similar as I move into Poland? And do I need to now, I'm pre-1870, do I need to start changing my language to Poland? I notice the records are in both languages sometimes.
But I mean, a lot of times they'll be in German because it was a German area, but Andrea will know more.
The research in the former German territories is a little bit more challenging because records may be either locally in what is Poland today. They also still may be in Berlin, where they have an archive just designated to Prussian records. And then again, and you may have city archives, you may have state archives, you may find something here, definitely Family Search, look at their collections, that's always worth looking at. Usually those areas that stayed together, like stayed German for a longer time, these records usually were in German, or if they were Catholic, then you would have to deal with Latin. But then later times when they became Polish, that's when Polish as a third language would become relevant.
Thank you, Andrea. Over here.
Thank you. Two things. First off, just for those of you who don't know, you have to be registered in a class on your schedule in order to rate it.
Oh, thank you.
So if someone's not registered in this class, they won't be able to rate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out.
And this is my German question. I have one family that had 9 children, 6 of them boys. All 6 of them, their first name was Hans. What's with that?
Well, what's with that is they then went by their middle names, the Rufname. Their call name literally means call name. I mean, the best explanation, this is apocryphal, is that they, in the Middle Ages, with so many children dying young, they wanted to confuse the devil on which child to take. Like I say, that's apocryphal. But anyway, you're going to deal with that. They're all the men Hans, all the women Anna or Mariah. Just get used to it.
Okay.
So, you, sir.
Hi, I'm very curious about the cemeteries in Germany. So I'm visiting where my relatives are from in Saarbrücken, Sulzbach. The one family part had their cemetery still there for so many 1800 burials and whatnot, but then the other family didn't. So it's kind of a two-part question. One, is it only that the family has the cemetery plot while the family is still alive? And then also, can you go to the archives and get cemetery records, or do you have to go to the actual cemetery office?
And I'm gonna add one more, and I hope Andrea knows this. What happens to the bodies?
Yeah.
After that?
That's a good question.
So to answer your question first, so usually if they're like the first couple of people are buried low enough, then they hope that they are decomposed by then, so they bury on top. Usually it is that it's 25, like if you have a family plot, it's 25 years after the last person was buried in there. So if you have like 4 people buried in there and the first one died 100 years ago, the last one just died last year, so then it would still be another 24 years. So this grave was in effect for 125 years then. So there then also depends in smaller towns where there's more space, for example, or if there were rich families and they have like really big buildings set up, so these may stay for eternity. Around the churches, you often find the gravestones for the priests or the ruling families of that area, for example. They also will usually stay there. But it is, to find the records, it always depends. Nowadays, the records, like our cemeteries, are more a state or city institution. Before that, it belonged to the parish and the church. The parish records usually just have the burials information, but the cemetery archives or cemetery offices, they have also information on who was the contact person of that grave. So if you're looking for living relatives, that would be a great place to go and talk to them.
Thank you very much. And we are virtually out of time. We're told that because of the recording again, that we have to stick to time. But you see where you can find us by email, Katie at booth 302. I'll be at Genealogical Society of Pennsylvania, booth 1811, 1 to 3 every afternoon. Andrea is going to be all over the place.
Yes.
So we thank you very much for your attention, and we hope we've gotten you kick-started in German genealogy.
Thank you.